emphasizing the fact that we needed to know more about the business than just the fact that the building was there, what the facade looked like, all these things that are definitely important, but that we did need to get some additional information. Wanted us to focus on the retail surplus and gaps, and then we needed to focus on spending habits. And again, as they said, spending habits are going to change tremendously now with the coronavirus. But the second step, evaluate the commercial district, I thought that was really interesting. They wanted to know the age of the owner, the ownership structure, financial goals, desired tenants, timelines, and an exit strategy. The exit strategy was brought up more and more frequently as we went through the series because the coronavirus had been impacting us more and more. The second week, again, because this was obvious then that this was going to continue for a while. Oh, thanks, Ryan. Can you go to week 2?
Yeah.
Okay. Week 2, what they suggested, they said this is a key time for the Main Street group, but to reach out to each individual owner. And it sounds like that the chamber did that with its chamber members, but we need to reach out to each individual owner and say specifically, how can we help you? What can we help you with? A lot of the emphasis was on having an internet presence. If businesses had not had an online sales opportunity in the past, how could we help them do that? And I'm going to just say from personal experience, we did not have an online store before all this. When in January, we had a little tiny bit. I've been dabbling in it, but I really focused effort on it, and that saved us. For the last couple months, that's been huge. So I think if we could maybe think about things that we could do to reach out to each of the individual businesses and get more information about specifics. They did talk a lot about sharing information about the loans and everything, and it was very much what you were doing, Ryan, on the homepage. They talked about the cost of an empty storefront, and that the information they said was every $100 that's spent at a local business, $58 comes back to the community, but only $33 of money spent in a big box store in a community comes back. So emphasizing shop local is important. And then they went back again and emphasized we need to find out what is our retail surplus and what are our gaps. Why are people leaving our community? What are they looking for? Again, any of the previous challenges and truths are going to be impacted. So current things, like, coffee shops are a great thing. They might have been in the past. They may not be now. We need to really rethink everything. Again, at the bottom, it said, help small businesses maximize their sale by providing ongoing business education to the owners. And that was, they emphasized that, conduct surveys, but then also have opportunities to educate them on skills that they might need to weather. Nobody could weather this really, but to weather ups and downs and, to think ahead, do they have business strategies in place? Work on image building events and activities, use these to promote the town. They said it was really important to promote your town. Every opportunity that you had. In week 3, they talked about focusing on the vacant buildings, and instead of having them just be empty faces, do things like put like wraps or any kind of picture in the window with maybe some suggestions, or what would you like to see in this building, and pull the town into designing new opportunities for the town. They may then just say, what? Actually, what they talked a lot about was we really need a hardware store in this town. And they talked about that on their examples, which was kind of interesting. And one of their main businesses that had gone out was the town hardware store. And so they were really focusing on trying to recruit. And again, it was the Main Street group that was going out and trying to recruit these businesses.
Elaine, if I could jump in just for 1 second. So the lack of local hardware store is a common problem amongst other villages in the country?
It must have been, because that was used in their example, and in the test that I had to do in the paperwork afterwards, they did focus on the fact that the hardware store was leaving. And you know, what would you want to see in this space? Where would you want to see it? And what was where were people identifying as a hole in the bucket? And they were saying the hardware store.
Really?
Which I was like, well, it could. They maybe they're talking about us, you know. But we talked about as a Main Street group trying to identify ways to offer financial incentives to entice the desired businesses, not just filling a spot with something, just to have it say it's full, but to really strategize and say, what do we need down here to make this a viable town, and somewhere where people are going to go to. And so you kind of have to sit down and do an inventory of what are we missing. And that goes again back to week 1, where they said focus primarily on retail surplus and gaps.
Okay.
So it's thinking beyond empty buildings, or, oh, look at this person's interested in doing a resale shop, or what, as an example. If that's not what the town needs. They also talked about setting the town up so that each of these businesses kind of flowed with one another. You could walk to one and then maybe to the other, but they all built on, one would like strengthen the presence of the next business, and just get people to come into town instead of going outside. Once they go outside town, they didn't come back. Let's see what else. They said develop regulations to manage business standards, but be aware that maintenance and vacant building ordinances are very political and controversial. And I thought that was kind of interesting, because I know that we've talked about that too. They said that might not be the first hill to die on, but they talked about the marketing campaign and talked about the town website should list available business opportunities and vacant spaces there too. And I thought that was kind of interesting, and gave an example of one town where the realtors thought, hey, you're in my lane, but it wasn't really that they were in their lane. Everybody was working towards the same common goal.
Right.
And then I did, like I said, like before, put window decals in vacant businesses instead of having them be empty and look dusty and dreary. Put something in there and say, what do you wish this building was? Or even they used the example of, hey, did you know that Hampshire was once called this? Or, little things about Hampshire. But something to bring some life to those empty buildings or empty businesses, so it didn't just look like dead business.
You know what? That actually brings up a good point, Elaine. And since we've got Jeannie on the line, Jeannie, you collaborated. I know that you did a lot of the work on that book. Do we have that book linked on our website?
No, but I'd be very happy to share that link with you.
Yeah. I don't know what the rest of the group has. Everyone read the Jeannie? What is the exact name of the book?
Hampshire.
Oh, okay. I thought that's
it was very good.
No, thank you. It's from the Images of America series by Arcadia Publishing, and so every little town has them, and so Hampshire needed one. So Denise and I worked on that project. And there's a lot of good little factoids in there. It's just basically pictures and a few words about each one. So.
Yeah, I'd like to see us try to get that link. So do you have that in a PDF to where we can convert that to a link, you think?
No, actually, I was more referring to the link from the publisher or Barnes & Noble, so you could buy it.
Well, there's that too. We want people to buy it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I can't. Since it's a published book with a publisher, we don't have access to the, raw material. I mean, just the data itself. So,
Okay.
Um,
Well, I still think we should have a link to where the people can buy it for sure. But okay. All
I
right.
think people, people are familiar with that series. If in Arlington Heights we had them, and in other towns that we've lived in, they're all very, very nicely done. We did sell quite a few of them too. We haven't refilled the order in a while, but just things like that, just to push, why Hampshire, and to put a face to Hampshire, to really focus on the vacant buildings, and to know right now that they said anticipate businesses going out of business, and just maybe reaching out one-on-one with them.
Okay.
And then at the beginning, when we were going ahead and doing the evaluation, doing that interview with the owners instead of just interviewing the building, interview the business too.
Okay. It's a good idea, actually. I got that action item.
So that's kind of a quick summary. I don't know if anybody had questions on anything on the papers I sent out.
I had one thing for Jeannie. Jeannie, so one of the things I've noticed, I mean, I've always noticed this because this is my job, but now more than ever, the lack of store owners within town that keep their Google My Business page up to date and their Facebook page up to date, just for simple things of store hours or flexibility. Is it just curbside? Is it, takeout? Is it anything like that?
right.
This is huge. There's a huge gap. So I really want to.
That'd be something really good to share out. That's an excellent idea.
Well, what I was
Everybody's
going to
been-
suggest is, if you ever want support, I'm making myself available
Oh, nice.
in any capacity, because again, these are the basics. 83% of the US public visits Google before actually going to a physical store. So if that information is not correct, and I can't tell you, there's more stores in this town on more than one hand that I've checked Google and it said, yep, they're open. I go there, it's not open. Or
It's not easy to change though. I take care of this. I have trouble with that. So just those little facts probably would help. Yeah.
Elaine, you can always give me a call and I can walk you through it.
Maybe you would be willing to do like a webinar with the chamber and get you could teach us all how to do that. Sure. And have the member businesses sign up. I mean, that would be something of huge value to people.
Yep.
Even how to find their Google My Business page and establish their credentials so they could change the stuff that's on there.
Yep. Jeannie, if you want to contact me after this,
I would love to. Thank you.
And then we could just kind of brainstorm on it. I just think it's a huge missed opportunity, and Google is really just putting so many resources out there to really just empower small business, especially now with COVID. Now's the time to definitely take advantage of it. So. That was the one thing. The second thing is, and Ryan, I emailed you this earlier, and this points to, Elaine, when you were talking about how COVID has changed a lot. One thing that I think we as a group should think about is COVID has made a really dramatic impact on businesses within Hampshire. But according to the Esri report, right now, about 60% of all those people that are employed are white-collar workers. So I think we can make a guess that a large percentage of those probably travel to an office outside of Hampshire, right? I know professionally on my side, we are being asked to really evaluate the need to be in the office ongoing. It's not even in the next month.
Right.
A year, it's long term. Can you do your work externally, working from home? If society goes that route, there is going to be more of a need for business services, restaurants within the village, because people will not have the ability to go to an office. So I found myself actually like relying more on the services within town now because I'm home every single day. And I probably will need that ongoing. So this could really be a way that we view new business within the village for services that cater to people working from home, whether it's like a UPS store, whether it's things like that.
Now,
That's a great idea.
yeah, it is. And I just wonder, what is the best way on the two things? Obviously, Jeannie, you took the words out of my mouth as far as offering a sort of a webinar through the chamber to where we could sort of give them, the people that are interested. Maybe some people feel like they've already got it, they got it figured out. But for those who don't, maybe offering that's one way. In what ways, Dave, do you imagine us being able, is it just in our marketing pitch to potential businesses, or how do you imagine that we would take that new projection, which I think is pretty accurate, and sort of leverage that to deliver those new services?
I think it's probably really being able to try and brainstorm around what is needed, but also just taking an assessment of what business currently exists within the village and identifying what gaps are there. Like, for example, everyone, I'm sure, has tested the bandwidth of their internet within their homes, right?
Absolutely.
Right. There are some people that probably don't get great internet. This goes back to one of these remote offices. There might be places to allow people to plug in right off of Main Street where the fiber lines are.
Right.
UPS store, like I mentioned. Even restaurants. I mean, there are days where I don't necessarily want to make a sandwich. I want to go, or if there was a coffee shop that allowed, now again, this is months on the road, we have a vaccine, but a place where people could just plug in, have a cup of coffee for an hour or so, then be able to go back home,
It's about having a town where people are encouraged to linger longer. Where do people sit? Where do they relax? What makes them come into town and just stay that few extra minutes? And they talked when we went on that tour with the streetscape people. There was a lot of talk about that too. They did ask. They said, "You have a coffee shop," which I thought was kind of interesting.
It's huge. It's huge. And now with our ability to have fiber through Maine, you could easily make a coffee shop off Main Street that could that really would allow people to work effectively. So just something to think about.
No, and I think, obviously I like to try to transfer our discussions and our thoughts into some actions. Do you think that maybe coming up with an inventory of business types, I mean, that wouldn't be a really a huge lift. I mean, I think that could be done. Do you think that's part of what we're trying to accomplish, Dave, in understanding, or Elaine, obviously? Is that something that you think would be valuable for us to have, or I don't know?
They sure emphasized it in this series.
They did.
And all three of the presentations, they talked about it in one way or another, is understanding the business that you have. Do a business inventory, not a building inventory. They go together, but the business inventory is really important. And they talked about, I don't remember the percent, but it was extremely low, of businesses that have no succession plan. Those are going to be empty. How do we help them, or how do we start to think forward and say, when they decide to retire, what happens with that building? How can we maybe, what do we need here that we need to maybe start looking for? How do we help recruit businesses to come, not just to fill a building?
Yeah. I think, I don't know, what's everyone's sense of possibly issuing it might be better in the coming weeks, but for those that might be, a really brief survey, just asking people that now that you're working from home, what additional resources do you feel that you need within the village as it comes to businesses? It's funny. Every restaurant in town is slammed. Slammed. And, outside of people wearing masks, any given night, you can go to any restaurant and it's usually really busy. So,
pickup perspective for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we take those two action items? I don't know if, the next thing on the agenda is to talk about the Main Street Committee. And I know we've got some big things to talk about coming up, so I don't want to belabor that point. I don't know if it's the most pressing, but perhaps the inventory of business types. Jeannie, do you guys have a good handle on that over at the chamber?
I know all the types of businesses that are members, and
Okay.
Those who have fallen off the membership. I have could easily give you those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah, but in terms of this idea, I think is fantastic. What I'm wondering around going, I'm out of ink. Where is there a copy store? Where is there a shredding place? I'm totally down with this whole list of, what we need in Hampshire to keep business going, because I've always worked from home and it's been easier, obviously, before.
Right.
But yeah, as far as the chamber goes, I will work with anybody who, to help compile a list or just give an inventory of what we do have. That's all on our website.
Okay, let's add that to our action items for our group. I'm not sure where that responsibility is gonna lie or to bring that to completion, but I certainly think it's something that we should have on our action item list to try to get accomplished in the next few months. Okay. All right, business type inventory. And then Dave, I really do like the idea. Is everybody cool, Bill, Susie, Ian, about doing a survey regarding people who are working from home? We haven't had a survey in quite some time. And I certainly think
I think it's a brilliant idea.
Yes, absolutely.
Agreed.
So
Agreed.
Dave, you could take that on to produce
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Okay. Elaine, outstanding. Very, very good job. Thank you for the notes. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I just really appreciate the opportunity to have watched those webinars.
Yeah,
They're very nice. They helped me actually with our business, so that was good too.
Oh, that's even better then. Okay, outstanding. Thank you, Elaine. Is everybody not seeing the screen share anymore?
I see it.
You still see the image of your document?
No, I don't see. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I don't see that.
Okay, no, I was having trouble getting
you.
rid of it for a while there. Okay, good. Okay, excellent. All right, next up, Dave, I hopefully you saw on the agenda, we're going to table yours because we've got some other big things we got to talk about.
Yeah.
Briefly though, I don't want to let this thing kind of slide too far into the path, into oblivion, so to speak. But we had talked about putting together a Main Street committee that would allow us to work on some of these things like Elaine had highlighted, things that are difficult to maybe do inside of our BDC meetings because we've got facade and we've got streetscape and we've got some of these other things. And I think we had talked about bringing Public Works in, maybe obviously Chamber of Commerce, maybe the township, maybe a couple members. Are we still all in agreement as a group that forming a I know we kind of have not totally been all in unison on this, but that there would be value to have a group that maybe would meet as needed, I suppose, to discuss the specific things of the Main Street committee. Just looking for opinions on that.
Personally, from my side, I go back and forth on just yes, no. So it's hard for me to answer.
Okay.
I could be swayed either way.
It just seems as we've talked over time, and Susie's given her presentation, now Bill's given his, and Elaine's given hers. It just seems that the Main Street mission appears to me to have its most success when we broaden the tent a little bit and we get other stakeholders in town on board. And that there's some actionable things. Like I really like that idea, Elaine, about taking the empty businesses and, working with the owners and maybe putting up, things in the windows so it doesn't look all, run down and broken down. But those are, those really require action, people who can take action. And, sometimes our resources in a village of this size are a bit limited. And I think maybe you guys have picked that up from the Main Street videos, that oftentimes these are professional, fully funded professional organizations with full-time employees. We really don't have that. And so we have to be creative and try to leverage those resources. But it just seems like there's more insight into this, more ideas that we could bring in an organized structure with some other stakeholders.
All right, I'm going to speak up here because Main Street was kind of like my big thing.
It is.
I, in going through the trainings that I have listened to so far, it is an executive committee that's usually paid, or at least has an executive director that's their full-time job, and we don't have anyone doing that. I think it would be rather overwhelming for any of us on this committee because we all have other jobs. Yeah. My second is the world has changed just in the last 2 months. In listening to, Elaine's presentation and listening to Jeannie talking about the Chamber of Commerce, the businesses that we do have, are they going to still be around? I mean, that's something to consider. Sad to say, but that's just the way the world is right now. Would our time be better spent on supporting those businesses that we already have, rather than jumping out ahead and doing a whole bunch of Main Street stuff without an executive committee? Now, my thinking, and Elaine mentioned this to me because she had said that her business was saved by her Etsy business. Perhaps this could be something that Elaine or someone else could teach the businesses that we have here in town, how to monopolize using Etsy to keep their businesses going. I'm not talking food and beverage. For my business, I've always done a lot online, so this wasn't a new learning curve for me, but I know for a lot of women in my business, this is totally new. So I am in the process of teaching people how to market through Facebook and doing special presentations and how to sell the product. I mean, those are things that perhaps we could help businesses who are already here maintain their business through this whole crisis. That's my first point. So help those that are already here, number one. Number two, I don't know, when I watch the Main Street stuff, I get so excited and there's so much to do and this looks so wonderful, but I don't know that any of us are equipped to take that on in that capacity.
Right.
I know I'm not. I love it, but I know I am not able to take on that with everything that I have going on in my life and my business.
Susie, to add to that, and I'll be touching on this next month, but the one on marketing, it's phenomenal. It's great. I do a lot of it professionally. I just don't think the village at this point of where we're at has the appetite to take any part of it on. It's pretty, like, if you're going to commit to marketing, you're going to commit dollars to it and resources to it. And and Susie, to your point, it's like it can be overwhelming, and maybe we as a group need to really assess at where we're at on this timeline that Main Street has, because we're very eager, but I don't know if everyone else is caught up to us of where we're at.
Well, and I think too, every business owner is completely stressed for different in a different place. We had to reinvent our entire business. The quilt shop business and sewing machine, it's all walk-in. Unless you're totally not a brick and mortar. We had to reinvent everything that we were doing in order to get ourselves in a comfortable position. And we're not comfortable, but we're as comfortable as we can be in an uncomfortable situation. But boy, that takes a lot of energy.
Right.
A lot of relearning and a lot of, okay, I know I did this before I retired last summer, but it's so different now. And how am I gonna, how am I gonna put this all together? So I do agree with you, Susie and Dave. I think we need to focus on the businesses that are still there.
Yeah.
So perhaps maybe for now, our next sort of move is maybe trying to put together a couple of these maybe webinars that support with the support and help and coordination of the chamber to help businesses during a time of crisis and maybe put future planning a little bit on hold while we get through this.
If you think of our skill set,
We're all talking at once.
That's the tough part about these.
And Susie and our
think
internet
that's a great
water tower.
Right. We're struggling out here. So one of the things I'm thinking, if we could support the businesses that we have now, I mean, in whatever way we can as a business development committee, that gives us a good reputation and a feel good within the community so that when things calm down and somewhat return to a new normal, we're going to have a good reputation and people are going to want to work with us. Some people are going to, think, wow, what a great community. They supported their businesses. I would like to start a business there. Just food for thought.
yeah, I mean, if you think of our collective professional experience, we have a lot to share. I mean, we all do, so that could be maybe our evolution.
And I think there's a lot of lessons that I think is Dave, I think you had mentioned that your company's going through is that, that a lot of the lessons that we've learned about working from home and things like that, even after this is done, may be still permanent. And, I think, Elaine, I would imagine, once your walk-up business returns, you're still going to sell on Etsy. I mean, that's
We are never going to go back to our old model. We are not.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm clearing out rooms upstairs and setting it up for online. We're going to change our hours. We have already changed the way that sewing machines are dropped off. We're decreasing some of our some of the things we're doing. We're kind of getting a little bit of a throttle down on it because we need to focus on other things. But we will never go back.
Hey, Elaine, has there been, just curious, based on our conversation earlier, are there any businesses that could help support that business, that Etsy business, that don't exist in town right now?
Any business, you mean any business that could utilize Etsy?
Or no, that could support
Is that
your
what
your Etsy business, like a UPS store, or is there anything that'd be able to help you out? I'm just curious.
Etsy has a pretty cool platform. They charge you an arm and a leg. You can have UPS picking up. You can have, all my deliveries could be picked up. And right now, I can't think of any businesses. I think not having supplies readily available is a big deal. I'll tell you what has been hard, though, is again, not having a hardware store. We've had things break down left and right, and everything that we need to do to patch it together has taken forever to get.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if there's anything that can support the Etsy business. I'm just learning that from ground up.
Okay. Just curious.
I just jump in here. I've been doing my business for 40 years. I'm finding myself teaching people how to work from home. Many people don't even know how to do that.
No, that's true.
Right.
Look how
So
nice
maybe
this
there's a
looks.
series of topics, maybe in addition to the ones that we've talked about at this point. So maybe I'll send around as an action item to the group, maybe potential subjects so that we don't, eat up too much more time here of just topics that we think we're qualified to offer. Maybe a webinar in conjunction with the chamber. So let's make that an action item, and I'll send that off on the minutes, and then let's try to respond back. And normally we sort of let a little bit of time breathe on these things, on these action items. if we could as a group maybe commit to ourselves to be a little quicker on it, just given the time sensitive nature of what we're dealing with in the situation businesses are in. So, okay. All right. Sounds great. All right, guys. So let's continue on to the next topic on the agenda. So as many of you guys know, the application, and Freddie's on with us too, and maybe she can offer some insight if there's anything relevant that we don't know, but it appears that the lion's share, all of the CDBG funding is going to be going towards the streetscape. And at least the application for those monies, which I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh or Freddie, it's just in excess of $1 million, correct?
Correct. It's about a $1.1 million application.
Yep. Which, we'll spend very quickly. Just everyone remember that. It's, these are big things that we're going to be doing.
It doesn't go as far as we think.
Yeah, right. $1 million to the village is a lot less than $1 million to you personally. But that being said, we did have 2 potential groups that offered us some concept plans. And I was curious that at this point, if any of the members that went on the walkthrough want to share with the group. I know Bill Swalwell, you and I had a very long conversation on the topic, and Ian was present as well as Elaine, and Josh, I believe, and Jay. But maybe at this point, if you guys just want to share the experience of the walkthrough quickly, and then we can pivot to the actual 2 proposals that I'd like to come out of this meeting with a recommendation to the village board. So feel free to jump in. Bill, if you want to take the lead, I'd appreciate it.
Yep. Can you guys hear me okay? Is this working?
Yep. You sound great.
Good. The walk, I have to say hello to Freddie, and I was so glad to hear that the village is elected to retain your services again.
It's a pleasure.
Fantastic. I'm so glad to hear you're back. The walkthrough went very well. The weather was kind of nippy, but I guess it kind of made us spend our time wisely. The potential vendors that were present for the streetscape conceptual plan asked the right questions, made some comments, made some input. They asked for clarification as to some of the things that the attendees would like to see present and included in the conceptual plan. It was good. It was fruitful, I thought. Other than that, we walked the entire downtown from Jackson to State. Everyone was able to kind of take a look at some of the buildings. We commented on some of the buildings as we walked, kind of like taking an inventory and assessment of some of the buildings that may need work, some of the buildings that were some of our success stories in terms of the grant program and the beautification program and things like that. Other than that, Brad was present. That was good because a couple things came up about infrastructure below the street itself, and then of course the utilities beneath it. What it would take from sanitary and storm sewer and electric. So going into it, they had I think a pretty good feel for what we're looking for in terms of the elements or components to the concept plan. So other than that, I think it went well. Ian or Elaine, do you guys have anything you'd like to add in terms of what transpired?
It's too damn cold.
Yeah.
It was really cold. It really was cold. I couldn't believe it. But I thought they did ask very good questions. And I think what I was impressed by was they were focusing on creating a welcoming atmosphere and a sense of place. They did ask a lot of questions about the parking and, how could they modify it without sacrificing too many spots and things like that. I thought both groups asked really good things.
Yeah, I was going to ask if the personal interaction that you guys had with each individual group, and then looking at the 2 different presentations, which we're going to pivot to here in a second, did you find a correlation? I mean, there was clearly, at least from what I saw, a difference in volume of material between the 2 groups. But did you think did that come across in the personal interactions, or could that just be one group tends to have more preparation, more jam more into it, or I'm just curious, did you see a difference in the personal interactions at all?
I would say that they interacted equally. Farnsworth may be, quizzing us more, quizzing Bill and others more, and then the planning resources would jump right in too. So I would say that both equally engaged and both ask a lot of good questions, and seeing it, interested in. And I want to say that, once the meeting was done, I got the hell out of there, but others went back and looked around. So God bless them. They're dressed a little warmer than we were.
Awesome. Okay, well then at this point, what I'd like to do is I'm going to go ahead and screen share the actual proposals themselves. And let's take a quick look at the first one, and let's do that here. And then I'm just really I want to open it up to the group, to anybody that wants to sort of offer opinions on the two different proposals.
Ryan, this is Freddie. If I might just add what the original request was for basically a one-page response to a request for qualifications that Jay had sent to both of the firms.
Okay.
Freddie, let me just jump in there real quick. We did ask for a one-page statement of qualifications, meaning what have you done in the past? What can you do for us in the future? I'm not sure we asked for a one-page proposal.
Okay.
I wrote the document, so I probably should know, but I don't remember exactly. That being said, I would not hold it against the other group, the PRI group, for submitting more.
No, and I didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying that was the original intent, was just to request, what are your qualifications? What's your experience?
Ryan, let me just interject real quick.
Yep.
I'm just going to ask staff not to make any further comments at this point. We'd really like to just get a clean recommendation from the BDC. So with that point of clarification, we'll just step back a little bit until you guys have had a chance to discuss it.
Hi, Jay.
Perfect.
Thank you, Jay.
I've been here the whole time.
I haven't looked at the participants in a while. Okay, so members of the commission, after reviewing the two documents, we're kind of just looking for feedback from our group. Does anybody have anything they want to share right off?
I looked at it originally. It'd be great just to thumb through it one more time.
Okay. Is it fine to start with the one I've got present here from Franklin? Oh, no, actually, I'm sorry, not Franklin, but Franklin Park. So from Planning Resources, Inc. Okay, so basically they give us an introductory page. I'm not sure, Dave, at this point, do you want us to kind of walk through the whole thing while we're here?
No, just unless somebody else needs to walk through the entire thing. I just want to make sure I know which one was which.
Okay. Well, there's the, this is Planning Resources, Inc. And then can you guys see the Farnsworth group? Did it switch over or no?
Yeah.
I don't see there. Now I do. Now I see something.
Okay. So there's the two different groups. There's Planning Resources, Inc. And then there is the Farnsworth group. And the, basically the Farnsworth group, in my opinion, gave us just kind of an outline of, their weekly schedules, what would be included in each one, the total cost for putting together the concept plan, and then the conceptual cost opinion. Now, as a group, guys, remember, this is really where we're at in the phase of the project is we're trying to get to the point to where we can deliver to either, I'm assuming it's Freddie, who's going to present our application. So this is the concept plan that will be included in the application that we make for these funds.
Okay.
So Farnsworth basically just lays out their process of going through that and their costs. And then they also, it was included in the email, was just sort of a, an advertisement for them showing some of the things that they've done.
Hey, Jay or Josh, could you just provide a little insight how these two firms were brought about or decided on?
Yeah,
Right, that's what I wanted to know.
This is Jay. I'll be happy to share that. First of all, Planning Resources actually did some work for the streetscape project that we shared with you in the packet probably 20 years ago.
Okay.
They continue to do design reviews for landscape projects for the village under the supervision of EEI. So they were kind of a natural. And then we reached out to Freddie, who had a recommendation for the Farnsworth Group. They'd done a really nice project in Paxton, Illinois. And I think, well, she shared some of that with us. I think Ryan has seen that. So those are the two firms that we contacted. And depending on how the response was from those two, we thought we might have to reach out to more. So, but that'll be up to you guys. Personally, I think they're both pretty good, both very good companies, and it'd be up to you all to really decide which you prefer, and then the village board. But that's how we came about. That's how we chose the two companies.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, did anybody sort of have now, was there anything that jumped out at anybody that was concerning in the two proposals that were given, or anything that you were worried about?
I have a question, because this is all new to me. As a committee, we're given a choice of these two groups. We've seen what on paper, what they recommend. And then you're going to take our decision between these two to the village board for them to decide by June 1st?
Yes, we are going to take that will be my responsibility at our next village meeting, to give a recommendation from the Business Development Commission as to which of these two that we recommend. Okay, so if there's nothing that sort of alarmed anybody, which I was expecting no one to really say anything, but you never know, so ask the question. Are there things that you liked in one? Is there any things that jumped out from the proposals that you thought one group had a better sense of what we were trying to accomplish than the other?
This is Elaine. I actually, between the two, I mean, and they're different. I mean, they're each different presentations, but what I did like about Planning Resources is actually under their approach, and I felt like their approach focuses, or at least they put it into words, that they would work with us to try and capture the essence of what we wanted in the downtown. I felt like that seemed a little more collaborative, and it seemed like they wanted to better understand. They want to make sure that they captured what was our vision. And, and I know Farnsworth was being very concise in theirs, and but what I saw in that was the steps. It's like, we'll prepare a black and white concept plan sketch and things like that, but it just seemed like they're totally different approaches. And I guess whichever approach the group, feels would benefit us the most is needs to be considered.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, I felt like I was comparing apples and oranges.
I know.
Absolutely.
Ian, what are your thoughts?
I've worked with both firms. They both do a good job. I was just trying to compare of, I see the one fee versus the other fee, and I'm always of the nature of, it's kind of like the old Fram Oil commercial, pay me now or pay me later. So I do know that a lot of our good designing friends, when it comes to preliminary work, will throw a nice bone down so they get the job, and then you got them engaged. They will, not be bashful about getting additional fees moving forward. But the rates seem to be, at least the Farnsworth group, their rates seem to be reasonable on the hourly rate that they, so it's kind of for them to list that too. So you can't go wrong with either one.
Okay.
It's kind of nice that though I was kind of giving a nod more to Planning Resources, because there were maybe a little more information than requested, but that sometimes shows an initiative and means they're really looking to do it because they put a little more time in putting together proposals. So
Right.
You know, from my standpoint, I just purely went off of just because this is all new to me as well. I'm familiar with the work they've done in Algonquin, and so seeing that work firsthand, I mean, it really has. I mean, I went to high school there, so going back there and see what it's done, and just it looks really, you know, the work looks really good. That's why they get my nod as well.
And for the benefit of the group, Dave, the company that did Algonquin is Planning Resources, correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Bill, did you have any thoughts on your opinion between the two groups?
I did. What I spent some time reviewing was what I would describe as the curriculum vitae for Daryl Garrison. He's one of the land planners from PRI. I compared the list of some of the projects, the representative projects that they've completed. As Dave mentioned, the Algonquin's, what is it, Route 31 that runs through there where they're doing all the work. It looks fantastic. And I looked at some of the other projects they did in terms of the close proximity, and the focus of the bulk of the projects were landscape architecture, downtown design. It seemed like the list of projects were focused much more on the type of project that we're trying to do. Not that Farnsworth didn't do those type of things, but when I read the qualifications and background, and please correct me if I'm looking at the wrong resume, I'll call it, of Constantine Savoy, who serves as a principal, I think, for Farnsworth Group. If that's the case, his background and experience, though very widespread, covering comprehensive plans for municipalities, transit-oriented developments. His background and knowledge is impressive, but at this point, that's not the type of work that we're looking for. I'm sure he could help us with the plan, but I walked away with a much better impression of the qualifications that PRI had spelled out in terms of the representative projects that they did. So my nod is kind of that direction. I guess part of it, not that this has anything to do with it, I'm kind of partial to them as well. They did the last project, and I thought they did a wonderful job on it, but that's 20 years ago, and I'm sure the staff has since changed, so that's irrelevant. But I was impressed with PRI.
Okay. Do we have any further discussion on this topic or any other questions?
Well, seeing as how Bill pointed out Constantine Savoy, and I'm going through his resume real quick, you can't go wrong with a guy that's graduated from Iowa State University. So
you can if you're in Illini.
That's right.
I'm on the cyclone. So
sorry about that. This is Freddie. I'm sorry. You cannot put Iowa above Illinois.
I'll second that notion.
Thank you.
Hey, they're open. So think about that.
Okay. All right. So at this point, guys, do we have any? If we don't have any further question, I think it probably would be a good time at this point. I'd be open to entertaining a motion from. If we don't have any further discussion, if someone would like to make a motion that we approve one or the other, then this would be the time that I would entertain that.
I'll make a motion to approve planning and resources as a recommendation from the BDC to move forward with.
Okay, we have a second on the floor. We're going to do a roll call vote on this, if we can do that. So at this point, I'll just call the roll and just vote. Right now, the motion is for recommending Planning Resources, Inc. And just say yay or nay. Or so Elaine Thomas.
Yay.
Bill Swalwell.
Yay. Yes.
Susie Kopass.
Yes.
Ian Lance.
Yes.
And I guess Ryan or Dave Pizzolatto.
Yes.
And then Ryan Krajewski, I also will vote yes. So the motion carries 6-0. Okay, excellent. And I will bring that recommendation to the village board. at our next meeting on Thursday. Jay, is that something that it should be as part of my committee report?
Yeah, I think you could do it under your report, and I'll make sure that it's on the agenda.
Okay. BDC.
And we'll put whatever your recommendation is in writing, and then the proposals in the packet for the board.
Okay, is that something, Jay, you want me to prepare the formal recommendation in writing?
If you'd like to put something in writing, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll just include the proposals, and you can just speak to them.
Perfect. That's I can do that as well. Okay. Excellent. Nice work, team. Give me a couple seconds. I'm going to try to get out of screen sharing mode again. All right, I'm getting better at this. Okay, can we all see each other again?
We can.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Okay. Next up on the agenda is we are going to talk about the beautification committee report. So, Bill, if you'd be gracious enough to pick up the ball and run with it, and give us a report from beautification, and then lead us into the facade proposal from Faithway.
Sure. We had a meeting roughly, I think, about 2 to 3 weeks ago, primarily to hear the current application for Faithway Baptist Church. The other item on the agenda, action item, was the wayfinding signs. We had some representatives of the committee meet with, what's the gentleman's name, Ryan, for the sign company?
Mike Armato.
Mike Armato, thank you. They met with him, and he was going to produce some example signs that we could use, touch, see, and feel in the wayfinding process, that we could then hopefully hang on to those and pass those along to the other committees to show and see what it is that we're going to propose. So we're reconvening for another meeting just for the purposes of trying to do things once and do it right as it pertains to the wayfinding signs. So that leads me to the other element that we did talk about at our last meeting and did take a vote on, and that was our most recent and current only active application, and that's for Faithway Baptist Church. I met with Lynn Acker, very nice gentleman representing the church, and he outlined the project for me, the scope of the project, what the intent of their project is, and they're seeking to maintain the church's original appearance. The exterior of the building has become quite a maintenance issue. In perfect examples, over the last 11 years, I think he said they had repainted that structure 3 times. So they're looking to minimize the maintenance, but at the same time preserve the original appearance of the church as it appears now. And they're going to employ the use of modern materials to low maintenance, new siding and windows and things like that. They're going to wrap some of the trim in aluminum to prevent the need for painting in the future, and take care of a couple other things. One of the things I found interesting about their application was the fact that it is primarily for materials. They were able to coordinate and arrange volunteers that are going to contribute or donate their labor to install a lot of these building components. So what we have is simply an application for materials, for what that's worth. And the committee reviewed the application. Did everyone receive I think when Jay sent out the packet and the agenda for today's meeting, there was a copy of the application along with the material invoices and things. Did everybody get that?
I did not see it.
Okay. Well, I'll summarize then. How's that? I've got a proposal that's dated March 19th, authored by Lynn on behalf of the Faithway Baptist Church. It outlines the objectives that they're seeking to maintain the historical character of the church and improve its appearance by using modern materials in the remodel. What's on the list of agenda and the scope of the works? New front doors, new outdoor light fixtures. They currently have an existing wood cellar door that's on the street side of the building that is going to be updated to a Gordon steel door. They also intend to install
We got to go. Oh, Brian
Can you
just
hear me okay?
Yeah, I'm trying to get the request up for you, Bill. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's okay.
There it is.
As I mentioned, they're going to wrap some of the aluminum trim, I'm sorry, the wood trim with aluminum and repair it as needed. So I want to raise at least a point now about with this type of a remodel project and being a historical structure, anyone that's ever embarked on repairs such as this, there's going to be unexpecteds. And as part of their proposal, and we did talk about this in detail at the beautification level, the committee meeting, and that is there's going to be, I'm sure, some unforeseens. And as such, Lynn appropriately included kind of a unknown factor or a 10% reserve in addition to the building material costs for anything that they might encounter unexpected. And the beautification committee did agree with that as long as any unforeseen expenses that he might incur, they just simply support him with invoices. And we would entertain leaving that 10% reserve in there. So with that caveat, we made the recommendation to approve the full cost, and you do see it there on the screen, at least I do on mine. The material cost was about $22,340. You can see the 10% reserve for unforeseen, and that's only if, of course, they're found, discovered, and incurred, and then they're supported with invoices, which brings us to a grand total of $24,574. The beautification committee made a motion to approve that at the full 75% grant level due to the extensive nature of the work and the extensive impact it will have on the building and the surrounding area. It passed unopposed, 5 in favor, 0 folks against. Other than that, it's listed out there, building material by building material, the cost summary. The doors, light fixtures, cellar door, vinyl brick fascia, vinyl siding, and Tyvek house wrap, and fan fold insulation. The doors over on the Elm Street side, and then, yeah, there's your total. So I'll try and field any questions that you might have. Does everybody, can you see that breakdown, or are there any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead.
You brought up the word historical, and then there's vinyl, which there's no such thing as historical vinyl. So is it are they covering up some old wood, or are they? I'm not saying that that's something you don't want, but I've never been, and it's just a personal thing with me, not a big vinyl fan. So is it? Can this be redone in wood, or I'm trying to remember the building bill of the church. I know I've seen it, but I just can't picture it right now. So
it's the building itself is situated right across from the post office. It's on the corner of Washington, and I think that first street is Elm.
Yeah. Now I remember where it's at. Thank you.
And you're right. The building currently is wood, and one of the issues I think that probably over the years the wood has encountered is that saturation with the oil-based paint, and it's just a peeling nightmare.
Yep.
I understand your concerns about wood versus vinyl, and I understand they're trying to go with the closest, appearance-wise building material. It's a completely different material, and you're right. My guess is they probably do an overlay versus stripping all the existing wood, but I don't know that for sure. Lynn, are you with us this evening? Would you care to comment on that?
Yes, I'm here, and your analysis is correct. We're going to go right over top.
Okay.
And Lynn, is the main reason for that just for the hope that the maintenance is reduced and the appearance will last longer?
Yes, short answer is yes. We bought the building in 2008. When we first occupied it, we stripped down the wood as best we could. We repainted it. That's occurred 2 times subsequent. And if you can imagine the cost and labor involved in that, it's ridiculous to keep doing what you've always done. We're not finding any good way to adhere paint to that wood. So we've taken the next step and say, what's the alternative? And the alternative was to go with vinyl siding.
And I think just for a point of context, and I'd certainly appreciate, Ian, your notion about historical. Our program isn't necessarily a historical district. Now that doesn't mean that our preference isn't to try to get a historical feel, but I think the main goal of our program is to try to improve the aesthetic more than anything else. And I think as a group, we've leaned in the direction of historical is nicer, but just for context.
No, and I agree with you, Ryan. It's not, we're not the historical society or commission, and if Hampshire does have one, I do agree with that. It's just like I said, it's a personal preference, but if it's what it takes, I don't see any issue with it. I'm asking the question of.
No, it's a fair question too. So.
Yep.
This is Elaine. I have a question. It's wonderful that they are going to have volunteers donate their time and their skills to do this, but I wonder, because it's volunteers, is there any kind of a time frame that we expect that these supplies will be used in? Is there like, how long would this take? I'm just thinking that I'm totally in support of funding it. I just wonder, is this something that's going to be over 2 years or over 6 months or over 3 months? That's all.
Well, I can speak to that. This is Bill, first off, and that is, if a project is deemed eligible and the village does support it in the form of a financial commitment towards the project, that there is a time frame in which the work needs to be completed.
Okay,
Very, very good question. And it is spelled out within the facade guidelines, the facade program guidelines online in terms of the expectations as to time frame. And Mr. Acker has been real upfront from the get-go in that they're hoping to get started on this, and I think they already have. In the spring, they know they've got a limited time frame because of the weather, our Midwest weather, and they're hoping to get this going. Lynn, do you care to comment on what type of timeline that you're hoping to achieve if you folks are awarded the grant, and when you hope to have the job completed?
If we are awarded the grant, we would hope to be done within 2 months. We've already pulled the permits because we needed that so we could get started on some of the things, because there's a lot of prep work we have to do, which we're in the process of doing right now. But we intend to move very quickly if we're approved.
Okay,
Correct.
fantastic.
We don't want this to be disruptive to our operations.
Yeah.
One question I had was, is there any kind of, I guess with the building permit to help support this, but the people that are volunteering their labor, do they have a background in installation of the siding?
Let me elaborate on that a little further, because there's a number of things involved here. First off, the quick answer is yes. We have 2 people that have their own businesses. We have another person that does 40 years in the construction business. Another fellow is involved directly with a restoration company. What's the volunteer part is going to be a lot of the cleanup and painting. We have monies lined up to support the labor. It's the volunteer is more work that the non-technical work, because when you get to those windows, that's going to have to be done very carefully in order to preserve the characteristics that are already there.
Yeah.
Because it's an arched window.
No, it's
fair. It doesn't bend very well.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that anything that we supported was installed properly. And I would assume it's white color, or the color of the siding is white.
That is correct, white.
Okay.
That's the current color of the church, folks. I'm sure everybody's seen it, but just so it's going to remain consistent.
Cool.
Any further discussion, folks?
Nope.
Anything come to mind?
And Bill, just to kind of reiterate what you had said previously, is the your group had recommended a funding at 75%, correct?
That's correct.
So from a percentage standpoint, do we have any conversations relative to that, guys, as far as the percentage? I think to date, we have funded some projects at 25%, some at 50, and some at 75. Does anybody have any thoughts as to where that percentage should be on this one?
I think we set a precedent with our last approval at 75%.
I agree.
And Bill, just to help me understand, because I'm not in the construction trade, if the labor was to be included, the number really would be much higher, correct?
Yes, it would.
The numbers not artificially, but maybe doesn't present exactly all the work that's really going to be done.
No, it's materials only, is my understanding. And if you're familiar with the church itself, it's significantly high. They're going to need scaffolding and ladder jacks and planks. It goes quite a bit. It's well above 2 stories from what I recall. So there's going to be quite a bit involved in coordinating those repairs. To take a step back and talk about the percentage that did come up at the beautification level, that discussion and the level of contribution, and everyone was on the same page in terms of the extensive nature, and if you want to call it facelift, that this work is going to have on the building. It's going to be trim, windows, doors, lighting, and then of course all new siding. Everyone felt that due to the extensive nature, they were in favor of supporting it at 75%. There wasn't really much of a discussion about that. So not that has any bearing on what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about it again. So, but I just wanted to explain the background and the discussion that did go into our conversation and how we arrived at the 75% recommendation for the BDC to consider.
And as a reminder to the team, one of the things the reason that we had constructed the program in this way, I think, as a group, is that we were trying to incentivize big projects that would be significantly transformative. Now, I don't know if everyone's had a chance to go see the Basset Hound Rescue, Gabber, but if that's not transformative, I don't know what is. And I look at that as a pretty big success. I look at what Roy did with his building as a huge success, as being transformative, bringing our downtown into a more modern feel, at least in a clean, updated, and then clearly Copper Barrel and what they did and Peterson Fuels as well. So to me, this seems to be in line with a project that is of that significant nature, which we had hoped to incentivize at the beginning of this.
I would agree.
Okay. Does anyone have any other thoughts on the percentage or approval or disapproval? Okay, then I will entertain a motion to entertain a motion to approve this this application at, unless someone has a different feeling, I guess at 75%.
I'll make that motion. This is Bill.
I'll second that motion. Ian.
Okay, given that it's spending, let's go through a roll call really quick. So the motion is on the table to, is there any other further discussion? Okay, just trying to do the Robert Rules thing, right? I will, the motion on the table is approval of the Faithway Baptist Church at 75% funding. Let's do a roll call. Bill Swalwell, if you could say yay or nay.
Yay.
Okay, Ian Land. We lose his connection. We'll come back to Ian. David Pizzolatto.
Yay.
Susie Kopaz.
Yes.
Elaine Thomas.
Yay.
Ian, are you back with us?
His picture is frozen. I think he fell asleep.
That he has a skill for standing very still.
Yeah. His hand isn't twitching.
We will just we'll have him as abstain on this one. I would assume since he was a second, he would vote for it. But at this point, we do have the votes to carry, and so the motion does pass. Funding of the Faithway Baptist Church application at the 75% level.
Ryan, this is before you move on. Can I just ask Bill a quick question?
Yep.
Bill, have you completed your review of the Basset Hound final invoice?
Yes, I thought I had, and that was prior to the beautification committee's April, what was it, 30th meeting or whatever. I did get an updated invoice, and I went through and reconciled and compared it to the initial. And we made a recommendation based on that revised invoice, the final invoice.
And so is that recommendation brought to this committee, or has it been sent to the village hall, or?
Well, Jay, I thought when we had talked about this and actually that was going to be the next thing I was going to bring up. It wasn't on the agenda, but due to the timing of it, that we would leave the beautification review because they were having a meeting before the end of the budget year, and it was certainly in our interest to get it approved into last year's budget. That we would leave it. That we can certainly take that up if you'd like, but I did not provide the material to the committee for that.
Well, I was just curious what the beautification committee review was so that we could process the final, the paperwork. If that's been completed, I haven't seen anything yet, so I was just waiting. I didn't know if you were waiting to bring it up at this committee or if the beautification committee would just report directly to.
Well, I did send the stuff to Linda.
Okay, great.
I sent everything to Linda. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And I know Josh was on the line with us, and we did approve it. And I apologize. If there was a follow-up action required, then that was my miss. So
I just didn't want to assume anything. I'll check with Linda tomorrow and make sure we get the paperwork.
Yeah, but beautification okayed it at their meeting. So
at the 75 level or the 83 level?
At the 75% level, Jay, all good questions. And there was a slight reduction. A couple of things were eliminated in comparison to the original proposal. The final went down roughly, let's say 2,000. There was an awning in there for 1,200 that was omitted. There was an increase of $650 for disposal costs. And then ultimately there was a $345 inclusion for a permit fee, which is not compensable or eligible as part of the program. So the net, the dollar amount is spelled out in when Jeannie had completed the minutes for us.
Okay.
Under item C in terms of new business.
We did book that amount for the prior fiscal year because we had to do it by the end of the month. So I just wanted to make sure that we were consistent. So sorry to interrupt.
No, that's fine. And I'm grateful that you had your eye on the ball on that and made sure that we didn't spill over into this year and compromise the work that we're able to do now. So thank you for that. Speaking of which, moving on to the next line item on the budget, for everybody's awareness, the village board has passed the 2020-2021 budget. And good news is that the facade program continues due to the requirement for a balanced budget. We did get a little bit of a haircut on that in the sense that in the past we've had 100,000. This year it was approved at the $75,000 level, which I still think is good. It allows us to do some work. Now that being said, and Jay, perhaps if you wanted to speak to this, funding is a bit uncertain, obviously, given the times that we're in. So that being said, I'm not sure where that's going to go. Or
I will speak to that briefly, although it's a little premature. We won't know until probably the middle of June any specific impacts on our current budget. But at this point, our total village budget is around $6.4 million. And I'm estimating right now that we could be hit as hard as about 8 to 10% total overall. So that could be anywhere from 600 to 700, $550 to $600,000 in terms of revenue income during the current fiscal year. The good news is that roughly $2 million of our budget comes from various utility taxes on water, sewer, electric, and gas. And then about $1 million of property taxes. So that's close to half of our budget. But the other half is really up in the air. Obviously, our places for eating tax or restaurant tax is going to get hit really hard. Sales tax is going to get hit really hard. We're waiting for the Illinois Municipal League to give us some projections on income taxes, which could get hit really hard. Probably the biggest impact in terms of percentage will be our gaming tax will be pretty much shut down because gaming gaming has been shut down entirely now for 2 months. The good news is that James Motors, which is our largest sales tax contributor, has been doing very well. I spoke to the general manager today, and they're having a record month this month. But they are selling more used cars than new cars, so that means their sales tax will probably down a little bit. But it's going to be a very tough year for the village. Just to start the year, as of May 1st, we've frozen all capital spending so far until we have a better idea of revenue projections. And there's some really good modeling. There's some very good economic modeling coming out now from the Illinois City Managers Association. And I put them together with the Illinois Municipal League, who does forecasting for revenues for all the municipalities in the state. And I'm hoping that we'll not only have forecasting from the Illinois Municipal League, but some really good modeling that'll help us project various spending and revenue projections for the village board, and get some really good graphic options to present to the public and the village board. So it's going to be a very challenging year. We're just hoping that it doesn't impact essential services, but I would say at this point, pretty much everything else is in jeopardy at this point until we have a better idea. So it's going to be a tough year for all of us. I was on a conference call with 45 other administrators in the Metro West area, mostly Kane County today. And some of them are already talking about furloughs and laying off employees at this point. So it's going to be a tough year. The good news is Lori Lyons has done a great job budgeting for the last 6 years with the village, as has the village board. And we do enter the new fiscal year with a cash surplus of about $3 million. But a lot of those funds are committed to specific projects and specific programs. We have $200,000 or $300,000 set aside for the intersection of 72 and State Street, which you've probably seen some activity up there. That's scheduled now to be bid next summer, and work will finally commence on that next July 1st. So that's the bad news. The good news is, as I shared with Ryan this afternoon, I think only the mayor knows this. Otherwise, we did receive a what they call a members initiative. We used to call it an earmark back in the 80s. So we received a line item appropriation from Senator DeWitt, who is on the budget task force or the budget working group right now for the Senate, of $650,000. And that's going to be a big part of the funding for our water connecting our north and south water system. Some of you are aware that we've had a real issue with that over the years. We have the $1 million of streetscape that you just talked about earlier. So we have some good, and the governor also announced yesterday an acceleration of some of the infrastructure funding. So we have several applications. Somebody mentioned earlier they're glad to see Freddie back. She's not only back, but we're putting her to work full time now. We have 3 different grant applications, and then Josh is primarily going to be working on the line item members appropriation that was added that we just learned about yesterday from Senator DeWitt. So there's some good news, but those are all capital funding projects and capital grants. So there's really no operating funding. And to this point, although Kane County has received their CARE Act funding because they're a municipality over $500,000, they've not shared any of that with any of the municipalities. So there's been no federal funding or state funding for any lost revenue for municipalities like ours. So we're kind of on our own. We're expected to enforce all the stay-at-home orders and the restaurants and the closures, and it's been pretty taxing on our police department. I will say that we're back to full staffing as of a week ago yesterday. So a lot of municipalities are not, but we have so many building permits going on right now and so much construction going on. I've met with 2 major developers in the village just in the last 2 weeks. Some big projects that'll be hitting the ground soon. So construction is really booming in Hampshire at this point. So we have a lot going on, but on the operating side, things look pretty tough in terms of revenue. But we'll have a better idea in June. And so I can't say anything other than at this point, we've only frozen capital funding for all of our capital projects for the village, and we'll know a lot more by June.
And just out of curiosity, Jay, does this in any way affect the timing of the Faithway Baptist project in the event that it does get approved, which I would expect from the village board or hope?
No, I think at this point, I hate to say this, but funds that are spent now are probably more likely to be funded than something 3 months from now, or even by middle of June, we're going to have a better idea of revenues, and we may have to lock down programs like the facade program. It would have to be considered not essential. And when it comes to essential services for the village itself, we're talking about the police department, and water and sewer. Even our streets department, which mows and does a lot of work, that's not considered essential. And the people that collect water bills and do all of our finance work, myself included, we are non-essential employees. So really, the police department and keeping the water running and the sewers flushing, the toilets flushing, those are essential services. So everything else really has to be at this point on the table until we find a better idea about revenues. I have a positive sense about the village businesses with Ryan's help and a lot of the other trustees and myself. We've been staying very much in touch with all the businesses in town. A lot of people have applied for their PPP loans. They've been successful. The Chicken Dip is having a great year under new ownership. So I know that's a small player in the big picture, but they're doing very well. All of our restaurants are open and operating. 2 of them were at the last village board meeting. So I feel like we have a pretty good feel for what's going on, but we won't really know anything about the numbers until the middle of June when we start to actually see receipts.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. Does anybody have any other thoughts on that or any contributions?
No.
Okay. All right. So moving forward, we just have to, Bill, probably more than anybody, I've already been approached by the Cave that said that they might be interested in putting something together for a facade improvement project. Let's make sure that we lace in some qualifying language when we do talk to them. I will do that as well. Just in regards to the uncertainty of the upcoming year. We do have a line item in the budget, but depending on the timing of that project, we have to just be aware and be sensitive to the fact that we are operating in certainly some uncertain times. So.
No, that's a good point. And Jay, thank you for the update on that. And that's a good point when we're talking to these folks, these property owners with potential applications. In other words, nothing's guaranteed, and it's going to be subject to the village's ability to finance it, as well as the 3 levels of approval. So, no, that's good.
All right, awesome.
Hey, Bill,
right, go ahead.
Were there any other potential businesses that were, because the one, like, I've got Speckled Fawn, it's like a running bullet on my notes every single month. Is there any updates on any properties in regards to facade?
No. The last time I reached out for Terry Bradley at Speckled Fawn, since you brought it up, I didn't get a response, but at all. And I don't know if that had to do with, I heard through the grapevine, Miley Edmondson may have been encountering some medical issues, and I'll leave it at that. So that might account for the lack of response, but I'll follow up with her. Aside from the Speckled Fawn, I haven't gotten any other applications. I don't think we have any that are currently pending other than Faithway.
Bill,
yes.
I had sent Bill an email, is that the young lady that owns a hair salon in town has bought the 5th building, and she was asking me about the facade program.
Yeah, let me just add to that. She has pulled a building permit, and she's doing quite a bit of internal renovation right now. So that's something to be considered.
Yeah, and that would be a key piece in our puzzle for sure.
Right. Main thread.
Yeah, 1/3 is left. It doesn't look great. So, and then obviously some of the other.
Building?
Yep. Yeah. And a couple of the key players, obviously, Palazzolo's, which will be the next topic I think that we're about to talk about, has been non-responsive. I've put in well over 24 phone calls to the owner of that place. Miley, as Bill had alluded to, they had some family health issues. I think that's probably slowed that down. I think also and then obviously Chicken Dip, but we all agreed that we're going to let the new owner sort of get settled in before we approach it. And then, so we still have a lot of work to do. I think we should be proud of the work that we've done. to this point, but certainly it's not time to rest on our laurels. I think we still have a good few years worth of projects in order to get us to full completion of what we had hoped for. So, so good work to this point, and we've got some more projects that hopefully we can get moving on. So. Okay, the next item on the budget. Did everybody get the email from Josh Ray regarding, I think he sent it during the meeting or just before the meeting? And I'm gonna share the screen so you don't have to go dig for it. And then Josh or Jay, I'd really like to sort of turn this portion of the meeting over to you guys so that you can maybe share some of the ideas. And so if everybody will remember, over the last couple of meetings, Jay and Josh had intimated to us that they thought that they were going to be able to start to put some things together maybe in a different way than we had originally imagined before they came on board. And we had all submitted our suggestions or our thoughts. And so at this point, if Jay or Josh, I'm not really sure who wants to share, but if you could kind of give us an update as to where we're at on administrative adjudication or code enforcement, since that's such a big issue for our group.
Let me just introduce Josh by saying this. First of all, he's done a great job in a lot of areas. Our return on investment there, Ryan, is doing very well.
Yep.
But in this particular case, what I learned shortly after one of your meetings is that we already have an administrative adjudication process in the village. It's only used for towing violations right now, and I don't think there's been one probably for over a year. But we do have an adjudicator that we use. And so Josh has done a good job of investigating what some of the other communities have done and also what our code currently allows us to enforce. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just going to turn it over to Josh at this point because he's really the expert, and let him handle it from here.
All right, yeah, so the summary that I sent that Trustee Krajewski put up on the screen there is just a bullet point list of very dense code language that exists in our village code right now. Based on all the feedback that we got a while back about what you would all like to see enforced, Trustee Krajewski summarized into 3 points there near the top: no peeling paint, no deterioration of the building, and no broken windows. A couple of the many things that our code already allows us to enforce, if you could scroll down just a little bit, please, Trustee. The highlighted ones right there are, again, more complicated than I've bulleted, but they cover those 3 points and much more. So we do have all the authority we need based on everything that you all want to see enforced. The process is really just the uncertainty right now. So we do, like Jay said, have an administrative adjudication process, and we're looking in on how to activate that a little more, I guess you could say. Maybe partnering with neighboring villages if we have to spread the cost around. That's a process that we're starting to look into. Currently, our process is, we don't really have one, hence the lack of enforcement. A police officer can go and write a code violation ticket, and then it has to be handled through the courts. And that's a little cumbersome and costly for the village. So we're trying to move to administrative adjudication like most other towns do, and also get the police department much less involved in this type of thing. Other communities have code enforcement personnel, or they have their building departments who do all of the building permit code inspections. They have them do property code enforcement too. So the process is just something that staff will have to work out. But as far as authority goes, we're good. So if you have any questions, I'd feel free to ask.
Hey, Josh, one thing Brian probably knows better than I. Probably a year and a half ago, maybe longer, we started looking into this. And one of the things that came out, because I don't know if it was a Main Street declaration that came out or somewhere, where they said if you were able to structure your fine structure in a way where all it does is covers your adjudication costs, then it's self-sustaining. You don't necessarily need to have work with other villages to share resources and whatnot. So again, I'm not interested in looking to find people, but I think if there weren't, there might be a way where the fine structure could be able to match the level of resources that are needed to actually enforce codes.
Yeah, let me address that just briefly. We had talked with Dean Frieders, the village manager of Pingree Grove, about, he had actually approached us to share in the costs. He has his village clerk used to be the adjudicator, not the adjudicator, but the records keeper in DeKalb. DeKalb has a really big program of software where they have to track the fines. As you know, when you get a ticket for anything else in the court system, you get notifications, you have time frames and all that stuff. And so he was looking at a very big program with a lot of citations. Since then, I've learned, first of all, we pay the adjudicator $150 to come out to the village. And right now, the village is represented by our attorney to prosecute a towing charge, for example. The only thing that we do adjudication for is towing. And so we don't believe that's necessary. It's not required that you have an attorney for either side. And I see this more as like a small claims court where you have an adjudicator. So for $150, we bring her out. It happens to be a she right now. And if we had 5 or 6 or even just 2 or 3 citations at a time, we might wait a month or 2 months, as long as it takes to get enough. So we have 2 or 3. And if those fines are $50, then we've covered the cost of the adjudicator. And the real goal is not even really the expense. It's
Exactly.
to get maintained. So one of the other things that we've talked about is, up until now, the only thing that the village responds to are complaints by individuals. In fact, we had one just this week about an unlicensed vehicle in a driveway. And our only real process for that is for the police to give them a 5-day warning. If they don't move it, then they get a citation, which has to go through the court system. But what I think you've talked about before, and what we've talked about, is that this would focus primarily on the downtown area.
Yep.
And this is probably a really poor example, but New York City, had the broken window concept of improving crime. And I think if you really set a tone with downtown, and then we could be instructed by the BDC or just on staff authority to enforce the code, the specific codes that Josh has identified. They're already there. I don't think, Josh, you would believe that we would have to add anything to the code, that most of the things the BDC has talked about are already in the code.
Absolutely.
Right. So I think we have the rules in the code that could be enforced, and we would probably use building department personnel. Right now that's handled by BNF, but Josh is taking a much larger role in the building department process right now. And in fact, he's just recently rewritten the building permit application. If you get a chance, take a look online. It's probably one of the smoothest new things we have. It's an online application. You fill it out, you push send. There's not even a form to fill out. It comes automatically to the building department and to the village clerk. And he and Thaddeus from our building department have been working on improving the whole packet for building permits. And his next process is going to go into water bills, and we're really trying to improve all the forms that are public. Earlier, Elaine said, I think that her business is not going to ever go back to where it was. I see the same thing being true with the village. We've been doing building permits by email now for 6 or 8 weeks. I think we're really pushing to make that go forward and make this a much simpler process, much less labor intensive. And so that will all benefit this program. So I think we're really kind of ready to go. We would like some guidance along the way on just to confirm that what Josh has identified as the types of enforcement that you would like to have downtown. And then I think really all it would take is us to start enforcing those, to develop a ticket that can be written, or a citation that can be written by the building department. And it would either be our building inspector. We have 2 of those from BNF, or it could even be Josh with some proper training. And then that person would appear at the adjudication hearing, and it would be decided. There'd be no court costs, and that would be it. So I see it kind of as a revenue neutral, any way we approach it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's consistent with our opinion. Certainly, we're not looking for it as a revenue generator, is more than an activity generator. I think we had talked at the origin of the facade program that the idea was, we felt somewhat responsible as a group, sort of the group being the Hampshire we, that we had sort of sat back and not done anything, right? And that might have been a function of economic situations, but that we had to first create an olive branch right? And sort of extend an offer of shared culpability to sort of bring these business owners to help build the bridge to make the ROI calculation. But we've been here now for 3 years, and we still have businesses that are ignoring our overtures. They don't call us back. And, we feel like maybe at some point a little bit of a hammer to sort of incentivize them to come into the group. And, just as a statement of, you can't keep it this way forever. I think is really what we're after. And I don't know what the rest of the group feels, but I know that's kind of been somewhat of the tone of the conversation we've had is we're not interested in the fines, we're interested in the activity of improvement.
That's
Right.
why
The one thing about your timing is not bad because one thing that Josh and Freddie had to do before we could get the streetscape funding is we had to confirm that we still have slum and blight conditions. So now that we've confirmed that and Josh has given Freddie all the evidence that she needs, let's fix it up and be done with it.
Beautiful.
Hey, Jay and Josh, have you guys thought about, this might be part 2 of the evolution of this, but have you guys thought about overall frequency, like typical timelines to allow people to correct issues? Do you find people once a quarter? Do you find people once a week? I mean, what's the duration?
So real quick, there's actually, just like there's an international building code and an international fire code and whatever, there's also an international property code, and which the village has adopted as an ordinance. They just adopted the whole code. And in that code, it actually lists out a process that we could follow that says the building official posts a notice of, what's it called? That they're not following the code. And then they have, a week or 2 weeks, I can't remember what it is, to correct the situation, or they can call and say, hey, it's going to take me a month, give me a month. And then after non-response, then it becomes a fine, and then it has to go to adjudication. So there is a process out there. We just have to decide whether we want to follow it or not.
Got it. Okay.
Would it be possible in part of that process, and I don't know what the rest of the group thinks, but this is kind of what I envision is part of the process is if someone does get one of these fines is that someone from the BDC, whether it's, it's Bill or myself, they are just instructed that we do have a program that can help them with this as part of the process, because I think that's really what our goal is. Our goal is to see them take advantage of the programs that we've created and let them know that there is a way to get it done without having to carry the entire burden themselves.
Yeah, I'd say that could definitely.
Okay.
I mean, it could be something as simple at first as just a flyer informational sheet about the facade program that goes along with the initial notice of non-compliance with the code. And then again, if no response, then a member of the BDC could go remind them and talk to them, or we could just start with the adjudication process, and then maybe we do something as fancy as at the adjudication hearing, we present the facade program as a possible longer term solution.
Yeah, I guess we have to also think about just in the event that that program is impacted, put a damper on what can be done.
Well, and that was kind of one of the thoughts too, is would through this process, and what does the team think, and giving them our input is, I would be okay, I guess, if someone was to fill out an application and from the timing of the funding of this program, given the circumstances, that we could sort of use that as a, what do you call that? What do they do in the courts? A motion to, suspend, right? So as long as they fill out an application, then, and there's timetables and things that are a function of our ability to fund it, that, we can, at least cease the fining of them as long as they've made and they fill it out. We've got a plan. We know where we're going. And we know that they're waiting on us as a, like a restraining order on the fines going forward. I guess, I don't know what you guys think, Bill and Ian and Susie, what you guys think about giving them a pass, or if that's possible, as long as they sort of make some steps in our direction.
When you say give them a pass, you mean waive the fees associated with the fine, or I'm in favor of offering a solution. When you come to someone with a problem, to be able to provide an outlet and something constructive to meet the needs of both, that's great, and I like the idea. of producing, an invoice or a flyer that outlines the program. But, I struggle with the ongoing condition of a few of those buildings. And I think, what was it? Sometime last year, we talked about establishing this administrative adjudication process. I'm kind of maybe a courtesy phone call, but book them, Dano. Come on.
And I agree, but I'm saying if we do that and they pay the first fine and they want to do the facade program, but we're functionally limited because of a funding issue, that we don't keep hitting them with fines.
Yeah, okay.
If they come to us,
you know what, Ryan? I mean, my perspective is this. Every single business that is within the zone of interest right now has been communicated to for the last 18 months, right? And so at some point, it's just like we have codes, especially now that we have to improve slum and blight. We're not going to be making over $1 million of improvements within their district and then not following a code. I mean, it's just right.
I agree. My only thought is if we sort of use the finding process to initiate sort of a reinvestment in their property, that we may get underwhelming work done. Whereas if we allowed them to time sort of getting with our program, we might be able to get that's my only thought is if we force them to make those moves without our support, we may not get as much of the renovation. We might, as Ian had said, I don't know, 4 or 5 meetings ago, we might end up with lipstick on a pig, which I don't know that's really what our goal is. So that's the only reason my thinking is if we initiate an action, and then they come back and say, okay, we're in, we'd like to get the facade program, but we say, all right, we don't have enough room this year because of funding.
But
it's not going to be till that we sort of then don't keep fining them as long as they've made an official action of submitting a proposal. We see their project, all that other. That's my only notion is that by being a little bit more patient and getting something that is something in consideration, which would be an official application turned in. I would be for sort of easing up on them because they're playing ball. That's my only thought. I get your point.
The only distinction I would make is there's a difference between bringing a property up to code and doing a facade improvement.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree.
I mean, sometimes they need to cut their grass.
Oh, yeah, right. Of course.
I mean, you know what I mean? We're not going to offer them the facade program. We need to find out what's going on that they can't just do the basic maintenance. Is there something going on? And that might be where that survey, when we talk to the business owners and find out more about their business itself, we might get more of an insight as to where are they. They're not going to do the facade program if they are struggling with closing down the business or something. What did they say? 20% of businesses that go up for sale actually sell. So maybe knowing more about the business will help us know more about how we should respond to the code violation, because people have to be held accountable, but at least we'd know what road we should go down.
Okay. No, I think that's fair. And certainly, certainly there are certain code violations that aren't facade relative. So, certainly that would not apply to those particular things. I would agree with that. And we should remember too that we do have that funding program through, I think, First National. I don't know if there's still up there, or First American, excuse me. And then the very, I think, helpful resource bank funding mechanism that we haven't taken advantage of, where even if you're sort of strapped for cash, they'll fund all of it and then sort of give you a loan on the back end. So, okay, Josh and Jade, is there any more you need from us on that topic?
No, I think the only thing left for us to do is probably come up with a fining system, the dollar amount, the number of fines before we go to the next level, and at what point we might actually, apply a lien to the property and that sort of thing. So I think Josh can work on that probably before your next meeting.
Okay.
And then we can come back with some very specifics about who would do the code enforcement. We have to work on a ticket format, that sort of thing. So I think we'll get to the execution level now within the next month.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay, guys, we are swiftly, maybe not so swiftly, moving along. Our last thing is our traditional Hampshire's very own. Jeannie, are you still with us?
I am.
Thank you for your patience. First
Sure.
off. Secondly, do you want to share with us, I believe you've gotten the Luxor one completed, but they asked for us to sort of hold off until opening up becomes something that is possible. And then I think Incredible Builders is also completed.
Yeah, they're all done. I sent in the pictures and everything's done for them. They are doing business, so theirs can go up at any time. They're still actively working. So if you wanted to throw them up on the website, we can start pushing that out. They would be very happy about that. And then it looks like you've got Rose Garden next on my list, so I'm sure they're going to be happy about that. So I'll go and talk with them probably next week.
All right, and Jeannie, and this is maybe my my falling down. You've sent me the Incredible Builders one. Did I not forward that on to everybody?
No.
I'm assuming you did, but I don't know. Do you need me to resend?
If you, I see here. Here's the. Hold on.
Still in the outbox?
No, it's still in the inbox probably that I missed. Okay, I will. I'll dig into that. No, Jeannie, can you make my life easier if you don't mind and just resend that?
I will.
Thank
Do
you.
you want that sent to your village email?
Please. Yep.
Okay, I will do that tomorrow.
As long as Ian's back, get his vote.
Yes. Yes, it's called technology's just grand as long as you have power. Right? The battery went out of my phone, which has my hotspot. So.
Oh, okay.
We've all been moved to my sewing room now too.
Yeah. Dave, if you can update the notes, that would be awesome.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, we have a couple. New business information. So I don't want to get too deep into this, but we do have an elegant outdoor designs. Has moved into town. He is a very ambitious young man. He's talked to everybody in the village at this point. So that's good. That's new information. And then I also had.
Who is he? Can you provide a little bit? I have no idea who that is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I should. So basically, it's just an exterior landscaping company.
Okay.
So it's a company that you would contract to come in and redo all the landscaping around your house or your business. So it's both. I think he actually had an interesting service where he went and bought a bunch of robot lawnmowers. I thought this was kind of interesting. Yeah, and he deploys them at certain places, and they just stay there, and the companies lease them from him. I just thought
they have them at Del Webb. They are the strangest thing. You're sure they're going to come out on the road at you.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, the technology's there. I mean, it just doesn't shock me that they have it, but so I guess that's one of his services. But I think what he's hoping to do is he's taking a portion of the old Little Wonders building, and I think it got converted to a faith-based sort of tutoring building that's over there. He's occupying the back space, and I think he's looking to purchase the entire space. But I bring that up just to show that we've got there's a company that's investing in our local downtown. And then additionally, I had a conversation with a developer today. I think it's one of the ones that Jay had recommended. They will be on the agenda for the next BDC meeting, where they're going to lay out a much larger project up by the truck stop in regards to logistics. Fundamentally, that area of our village is really going headlong into the logistics business, and that entire area is becoming sort of a logistical hub for this region of the state. So it's pretty wide sweeping. I won't give you any details. I'll allow them to come in next meeting and share those details. But it's another positive development, I think, going forward.
Anything else new-wise?
Jay and Josh, do you have any? I mean, we've obviously got the salon that's going into the third building. So that should be happening here, I think, relatively quickly.
Freddie Schmuddy
is now exiting.
And is there anything else, Jay or Josh, you guys have to share?
No, I think that's it. We have a lot of companies that are inquiring about different businesses for the new strip mall that's proposed out on 72. Nothing official yet. I would just add that Elegant Design, I think, is that landscape company. Their application for zoning was approved last night by the zoning board, so that'll be on the agenda for next week's village board meeting. No, I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay.
Hey, Ryan, has
Yes,
Joe given you any feedback as to when he's going to break ground?
Well, Joe, as you guys know, Joe's a very close personal friend of mine. Last time we talked, he says he's struggling getting renters. Seems to be his challenge at this point.
Wow. Okay.
And I don't know if it's in sort of just pairing it with information that I've gathered from talking to the people that own the strip mall over on with the Dairy Queen and the Subway.
Yeah.
But the rent per square foot, for a new building that you need to get and rent is it's high. And so finding people that are willing, and I don't know if that's, Joe didn't have a good sense. Was that because there's available space? Sort of the same ACE conversation that I've had with your guys. Certain businesses are just geared towards a existing or used building, so to speak. And so that seems to be the only input that Joe has really given me, and at this point. But he says that it is being actively marketed. And he's hoping that he can get the required signed leases in order to get the bank to fund the construction. So it appears to me at this point that's where he's at.
Okay.
Okay. At this point, guys, does anybody have anything else they want to add before we adjourn?
And if I may, this is Lynn again. I just wanted to say thank you for everybody.
And thank you, Lynn, for taking the initiative to organize your team in such a way that you put together an application. We're certainly very excited to see that project take form, and we appreciate you joining with us and getting on board with the program.
And let me just add, if you run into any issues with permitting or anything, feel free to give me a call at Village Hall anytime. We're
okay.
Really appreciate the investment that you're making in the community.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate that. Permit has been secured, so I think we're in good shape there. And we look forward to getting this done. And thank you. Go to the village board because I know we have another approval needed.
That's right.
That's right.
Who set up this wacky system? All right, at this point, with nothing further to be added, I will enter. First off, I just want to say, hey guys, we did this fantastic. This went really smooth, and thank you guys all for accommodating these unusual circumstances. But I think we had another effective meeting, so I'm grateful for that. And at this point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn at 8:52.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is now exiting.
All right. Thank you, guys. If anybody has anything they want to talk separately, you know my cell phone number. Feel free to reach out.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.